Hey guys, Bison25 here, watch the launch of an Ariane 5 carrying 4 Galileo satellites in flight VA240. Don't know what V is, A I presume is Ariane, because Vega launched their VV, V is actually BS. This should be interesting because this is the low Earth orbit variant of the Ariane, which hasn't been used. There was another one launch like this last year, and the previous launch to that, where this variant of Ariane was used, was on the was for the final ATV. It's like George or not, and I'm mispronouncing that obviously.
Welcome to the equator, welcome to the Guyana Space Center with a new Ariane mission for now. Ariane 5 will lift off from Kourou with under the fairing of 4 Galileo satellites. But for the time being, let's hear from the English commentator, Katie Haswell. Hi Katie, where are you?
I'm in Mission Control, the nerve center of operations here at the spaceport. People here fondly know it as the Jupiter Control Room. And behind me here is what we call the fishbowl. This is the glass area where the operational teams are focusing very hard at this point before launch. We are about 18.5 minutes now to launch. Over to Stefan Israel, who is the chairman, the CEO of Ariane Space, to tell us more about tonight's mission. Stefan.
So, dear Minister, dear ISA DG, Monsieur le Préfet, dear representatives of European nations, dear customers and partners, ladies and gentlemen, Ariane Space is delighted to welcome you from the CSG for this new Ariane 5 mission, the 6th and last one of the year with our heavyweight vehicle. In a few minutes, we are going to use for the second time our Ariane 5 ES to launch 4 more Galileo satellites for the European Commission in the framework of a contract signed with the European Space Agency. As of this launch, the European Global Navigation Satellite System Agency, GSA, will be responsible for the satellite's operation in collaboration with ESA. The 4 satellites have been manufactured by OHB. Thanks to the EC and ESA for your trust. As you can see on the control screen behind me, Ariane 5 is on the launch pad after having been transferred yesterday. All the operations linked to the final countdown went well. So we should be in a position to launch in a few minutes at exactly 3:36 p.m. As you know, the liftoff occurs 7 seconds after the H0 at the ignition of the solid boosters. Ariane 5 will then head towards the northeast to separate the satellites 2 by 2 in a circular medium Earth orbit at an altitude of 22,922 kilometers, inclined at 57 degrees with respect to the equatorial plane. This mission is a long one. We will need to be patient. 2 Galileo satellites will first separate at H0 plus 3 hours and 35 minutes. The 2 last Galileo satellites will then separate at H0 plus 3 hours and 55 minutes, marking the end of the mission. Our launch is now just a few minutes away. So go Ariane 5, go Galileo, go United Europe for space, and of course, enjoy the show. Thank you.
So, Galileo, Europe's very own satellite navigation system. Once the constellation is complete, it will consist of 24 satellites.
Yeah, you can see those propellant feed arms are not extended, they're not connected.
Satellites in space. Joining me is the Director General of the European Space Agency, Jan Werner. Jan, thank you very much indeed for coming.
I've seen him before.
Jan, it's been quite a journey. You've got nearly a full constellation. You launched the first ones in 2006.
Yeah, it is a long journey, but it is also a very important project, so you cannot do it on one day. And we did it the European way. That means we have a lot of partnerships within Europe with different companies. So we have also different organizations, the European Commission, the GSA, the European Space Agency, we have the industry. So I think we did it in a very transparent way, and therefore the success is there.
And quite a job of cooperation, if you like, also between the European Union and ESA. and obviously this is one of the big flagship programs. Copernicus is another one of those programs to help us better understand our planet. How important are these programs for Europeans?
I think it is clear that these type of programs like Copernicus, like Galileo, and we should mention at the same time also EGNOS, they are, first of all, they are a European point in space because we have really some autonomy in space. And if you look to Copernicus, it's the world leading Earth observation system, and if you look to Galileo, it is now the best in class with its performance already right now, although it's not fully completed. So it is very important for Europe to have a clear independent point.
So are they saying it's better than GPS and or GLONASS?
If we just fast forward a bit now to the future, we can already see a part of it physically here at the spaceport because we've got the launch zone being built for Ariane 6. What does the future hold?
So the future is very bright and it's broad at the same time. So we are developing new launcher family, Ariane 64, 62 and Vega C. This is a new generation, much cheaper than the current launcher, so therefore we are more competitive in a very changing launcher sector worldwide. At the same time we are thinking about new Copernicus satellites for Earth observation. We are thinking also about what should be the next generation of Galileo, and besides that, don't forget about exploration, telecommunication and all of these aspects. So space in Europe is now really a very broad and bright activity.
And Werner, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you.
So here in the Mission Control Center we have a number of different teams and each one of those teams sitting at a different desk. One of those teams, an important team, is the flight desk or the flight control desk. That's the team we're looking at here. This is the Ariane Space top management. They make all the final decisions in the event of unplanned situations, and of course those decisions based on very concrete information coming from the teams all the way across the base here at the Guiana Space Center. Right, let's take a look now at our launcher and the satellites and get some facts and figures. Over to you, Thierry.
Yes, Kelly, gros plan sur le lanceur et les passagers du soir.
Yes, indeed. Let's take a look at the launcher and the payloads. It's Ariane 5 ES, 47 meters high, a liftoff mass of 760 tons. Initial thrust will come from the solid boosters surrounding the Vulcan 2 engine. The medium fairing measures 14 meters in height, and it protects, as we know, 4 passengers this evening. Each of the passengers weighs 750 kilos, so you multiply that by 4 and you add the mass of the dispenser, which is the system that keeps them in their star-shape assembly, and you have the required performance of 3.282 tons today. This is the 7th full operational capability, or FOC, mission. Now, I said that the flight this evening did not have a launch window. We have a fixed time at GMT, 18 hours, 36 minutes and 7 seconds, to be precise. Now, let's take a look at exactly where we are currently. We are some 9 hours flight distance from Paris and is referred to as Europe's gateway to the stars. In other words, Kourou. We leave Europe, heading west-southwest, and after about 7,000 kilometers, we reach the South American continent. We're to the north of Brazil, in French Guiana, and you see that little dot, that's Kourou. At the mouth of the Kourou River, you can see the promontory of the Roche and the Tour Dreyfus. Kourou is on the Atlantic Ocean, and in the distance you can see the renowned Devil's Island, which harks back to the times of the penal colony. And then we move up the coast towards the Space Center, flying over some of the small lakes that are like mirrors dotted around the town. 10 kilometers up the space road, and here we come to the entry to the Guiana Space Center. You can see it now with the famous scale model of Ariane 5. And obviously this is where we have the Space Museum that so many people have visited over the years. We have the Jupiter Control Center, and that is precisely where we are, Katie, are we not?
The second boost of EPS, we have the separation of the first 2 satellites. After the first separation, we have to wait 20 minutes before the second separation.
I won't wait for that one. I'm sorry,
the
but
two last
that's
satellites
like
are
8
separated.
hours.
Then the EPS is left on the graveyard orbit, and that's the end of the mission for Ariane 5.
So a long journey ahead tonight. It's going to take us about 4 hours to deliver our 4 satellites. A couple of key people here in mission control. This is the mission director in charge of the launch campaign, and another important person is the range operations manager. She calls out all the major events in the flight tonight. Today it's Fleur, and you'll be hearing her voice.
À tous de DDO, attention pour la séquence finale lanceur.
She's about to call out the beginning of the synchronized sequence.
Top H0 moins 7 minutes.
Voilà donc la séquence synchronisée qui est lancée. Les calculateurs au sol effectuent les
Sequence.
dernières mises en œuvre
The ground computers carrying out the last electrical and mechanical checks that allow the launcher and its passengers to become fully autonomous before liftoff. The sequence involves a number of checks and parameters to verify very quickly, and it's a sequence that's totally automatic. The campaign began on the 18th of September with the arrival in Kourou of the first 2 satellites. They arrived by pairs here in French Guiana. So 18th of September was the start of the campaign, and we're now going to hear about the campaign together with Raphaël Breda and Thierry Villemar.
donc la campagne.
The objective of the Ariane 5 VA240 campaign is to place 4 Galileo L4C M7 satellites in orbit. The satellite campaign began 3 months ago in September with the arrival of 2 first satellites. The next 2 satellites arrived in October. We transferred them to their preparation building S1A. The satellites were finalized and checked and were then transferred in the filling hall S3B. There, the satellites were filled and inspected. We then move into the so-called POC phase, where we assemble the satellite and launcher elements.
The launcher campaign began October 23. Ariane Group and Ariane Space teams made up of about 23 people worked hard to meet deadlines. On Friday, the launch readiness review authorized us to carry out final operations and transfer the launcher to the launch zone on
Pause
Monday.
again until we're a bit closer to
Then
launch.
operations to prepare the
Actually, until
countdown
we're-
took place over 48
Till we're on the
hours.
final.
The synchronized sequence
10,
10 seconds launch.
8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, top.
Allumage vulkan.
Allumage Vulcain.
10 seconds.
Allumage des 2 EAP et décollage Ariane 240 Galileo
Oh, that actually went up fairly quickly for an Ariane. See, that's a drone shot. And it's gone. The slightly phallic smoke drone now.
La propulsion est nominale. Tous les paramètres à bord sont
And
normaux.
there they go. Blazing a trail across the sky here over the spaceport, the Guiana Space Center. We're heading northeast out over the Atlantic Ocean, and we can
La
hear the
trajectoire est
launcher
nominale.
as she flies over us here. We're about 20 kilometers from that pad. We reached Mach 1 after
Oh, cool, that will be
45 seconds
flying
when we
by
broke
just
the
outside my
sound
house.
barrier.
Well, not just outside my house, but
And right now,
It should
it's
be
the
visible.
boosters that are doing all the
Tous les
work.
paramètres à bord sont normaux.
She's telling us that
yeah,
everything
it says
on
that
board
there's
is
going to be a
plan.
cutoff there.
They are providing 90%
So if
of our
possible,
thrust
I
right
am
now. That's
going
the
to
equivalent of
look
12
outside,
jet
see if I can
engines,
see
and
it.
Their job is to push us away from the
I should. I mean, I've seen previous Galileo satellites.
We need a lot of firepower to do that.
At that point, I just firepower. That's something else.
Propulsion
I was
is
looking at,
going normally.
and I see just these
Each booster is
one
burning
larger
2
dot and then
tons of
2
propellant per
smaller
second, and
dots
that's
on either
roughly
side.
the equivalent of what an
And,
average car
like,
would
I think
use
2
in a
days
year.
earlier was the
They're using it in a
launch
second.
of the Soyuz with with what's face the
Unbelievably,
Galileo
those
sats.
boosters are burning at roughly 3,000 degrees Celsius, and yet the main stage is burning cryogenic propellant, which is at absolute zero. It's the coldest temperature you can get, so you can just imagine the complexities of balancing and keeping those two temperatures next to each other, the extremely hot and the extremely cold. It's a feat of human engineering. And she's announcing separation now of those two boosters. We don't need them anymore, and they can be jettisoned. There they go. Those were cameras on a previous launch. We've lost about 3/4 of our weight. The lighter we are, the faster we can go. And we're now burning the main stage. It's that grey section. It's a huge tank of cryogenic propellant, which is liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen. It burns for about 9 minutes.
Tous les paramètres à bord sont normaux.
And in a minute we'll be looking at the launcher again, and we'll be able to see what we call a fairing. That's the front, the nose, if you like, of the launch vehicle.
La propulsion est nominale, tous les paramètres à bord sont normaux.
She's telling us that everything is normal. Everything's going according to plan.
I may or may not turn off the camera.
So there you can see the fairing. That's the nose, the pointy bit of the launcher, and the fairing is the section which protects. And this protects the launchers, the satellites, from the rigours of the launch. Those rigours include the acoustic vibrations at liftoff. You can just imagine there that it's very loud. So our satellites are now exposed to space. We took off, you can see there, from the northeastern coast of South America, and Galileo is the... She's telling us that everything's going according to plan still. Galileo is the tracking station here at the Guyana spaceport, and you can see we're travelling northeast. SNA is the next tracking station to pick us up. That's a boat in the middle of the Atlantic, and then we'll be heading up towards the northwestern coast of Europe, and we'll be picking up the signal at the Azores. Let's find out more now about today's mission.
For this 11th flight of the year, Arianespace is proud to welcome the two-day Ariane 5 VA240 Galileo 4 M7 mission to deploy 4 more Galileo satellites for the benefit of our customer, the European Space Agency, acting on behalf of the European Commission. Arianespace today reaffirms its company's important role in supporting European governments and institutions with independent, reliable, and available access to space.
This launch will place in orbit 4 more satellites in a series of 22 manufactured by OHB in Germany, embarking payloads provided by SSTL in the UK. 5 Fox satellite launches have already been carried out by Soyuz launchers, each delivering 2 satellites into orbit.
For this launch, a second Ariane 5 ES version dedicated to Galileo mission will be used, with in particular a different upper stage called EPS. The EPS storable propellant upper stage is powered by a reignitable engine that operates with MMH and 204 propellants, allowing reignition capabilities, essential for required Galileo mission performance.
This launch campaign started in mid-September 2017 with the arrival in French Guiana of the first pair of satellites. All 4 satellites have undergone a series of tests and preparation activities.
For recall, the specific dispenser carrying structure has been designed by Ariane Group, allowing to support 4 maximum satellite masses of 738 kg each, which cover with comfortable margin the actual satellite masses for this mission.
This campaign has led to additional needs in coordination and technical operations. All these challenges were surmounted through excellent preparation, planning and execution, the experience gained in the previous Ariane 5 launch campaign, and especially thanks to the very efficient technical teams.
Finally, I would like to thank all involved teams, and firstly our customer, the European Space Agency project team, the satellite manufacturer OHB, and the CNES-CSG teams for their very efficient collaboration and fruitful teamwork, which allowed to manage the program and the launch campaign with a great professionalism.
Indeed. 7 minutes and 24 seconds into launch, and today is the 56th mission that Arianespace will have performed for the European Space Agency. And during that film we picked up the signal at the SNA tracking station. That's the one in the middle of the Atlantic, the boat. Bottom left is our altitude. We are 134 kilometers above our planet. The middle is the distance. That's if you were to draw a straight line along the planet from the launch zone to the position of the launcher. She's telling us there's 1 minute left of a burn on the main stage. And then on the bottom right hand side you can see there is our speed. We're travelling at an unbelievable 7 kilometers per second, not per hour, per second. And on the top right hand you can see there is our trajectory. That is the planned trajectory, and the white cross is the position, the actual position of the launch vehicle. Burning at the moment the main Vulcan engine. It's propelling the main stage, which is an extremely powerful beast.
I wouldn't call that a powerful beast.
And we have switched off that engine, and we have separation there of the main stage, and we have switched on the engine now of the upper stage. So we're beginning the next phase of the flight. The upper stage. She's saying the first engine switch on of the upper stage. So the upper stage has taken the wheel, and its job is to transport our satellites to their correct orbit so that we can release them absolutely precisely onto their orbit, and from there they'll be heading off on their own in medium Earth orbit to their final slot, and they have to do that all by themselves. We have 3 orbits for anyone who's not familiar. Well, 3 main ones. We've got low Earth orbit, which is the nearest to Earth. We have medium Earth orbit, which is where these guys will be sitting, roughly 23,000 kilometers above our planet. And then we have an orbit called geostationary orbit. We're not using that one today, but that's where most of the telecommunications satellites sit, and that's 36,000 kilometers above Earth. The Galileo program is an important collaboration between ESA and the European Union.
A symbolic image of the European spaceport in Kourou, French Guiana.
Here just to let this correct itself a bit.
A number of areas, for example, which are coming is the so-called Internet of Things.
So we set some pause. There was Tesla Autopilot.
Positioning in sensors, and these sensors have very little power and.
Joining me here in the commentary box is Eddie Yao. Eddie is the ESA
I might head out soon just to see if I can
of the system engineering unit.
See the
Eddie, it's a real
video.
pleasure to have you with us.
I see the vehicle flying past.
Great time to be here. Thank you.
Just a very quick rundown of what you do, and what does that mean?
Indeed. Within ESA Systems Engineering, we're responsible for the actual original design of the system and the flow down of the requirements, as ESA is the system design authority. As part of the system architecture, we make sure that the requirements are all properly flown down and released down there to the people for procurement.
So just back to today's flights, we had the signal, the tracking station in Santa Maria in the Azores picked up the signal during that film. Quick recap of the flight path, Eddie.
So at the moment, the launcher is flying up over the northeast across the Atlantic. It's passing over then the west coast of Europe, and then will go up over Russia, and then back down again over the southeast of Asia.
And the ground stations are picking up the signal from Ariane, which sends its signals down to those ground stations as it flies over, and that process is called telemetry. Galileo started offering services last year.
Well, no, I won't, because for the next 2 or 3 hours I'm going to be 100%
She's telling
cloud
us that
cover.
everything's going perfectly normally. Just quickly, what are the main services, Eddie?
Indeed, actually,
yes, unfortunately I cannot go outside to watch this flight past.
2016. Over that period, we've been providing already the open service, pure service, and a search and rescue. And then, since then, in the 1st of July, the GSA has become responsible for the actual operations for the service availability.
Let's take a look now at the GSA.
The mission of the European GNSS Agency is to ensure that users in Europe and around the world get the most out of Europe's satellite navigation programs. To do this, one of the agency's key responsibilities is to oversee the operation and service provision of Galileo. In addition to our headquarters in Prague, the GSA manages a number of the important Galileo service facilities and functions across Europe.
The GSA operations and service team works with a team of experts at several centers. The Galileo control centers monitor and control the constellation, working as mutual backups. The European GNSS Service Center operates the Galileo User Help Desk and supports users around the clock. The Galileo Reference Center provides independent monitoring of Galileo's performance and the quality of the signals in space. And the Galileo Integrated Logistics Support Center provides repair and spare parts provisioning for the Galileo ground infrastructure.
The GSA also ensures that Galileo signals are secure, including the Galileo Public Regulated Service, which is reserved for institutional users. We are also responsible for the Galileo Security Monitoring Center and ensure the functioning of the EU GNSS Security Accreditation Board. The agency also plays a key role in the development of applications and services, manages EU-funded research, and analyzes the global GNSS market. As a result of our work, today many devices are Galileo-enabled and are already making a difference to users across the globe.
So Galileo satellites are making our positioning better and better.
Il reste moins de 2 minutes de propulsion de l'étage à propergol stockable.
She's telling us there's 2 minutes left, less than 2 minutes left on the upper stage burn engine. So the upper stage is indeed powering us. Its job is to deliver our satellites onto what we call a transfer orbit. And
La trajectoire reste nominale.
it's transfer because they will then travel afterwards on their own to their own final orbital slot. But the transfer orbit's roughly, I think, around about 23,000 kilometers. Eddie, how does Ariane know, how does the upper stage know what it's doing and where it's going?
Well, within the upper stage itself, there's actually an intelligence part to it. It's actually within what's called the vehicle equipment bay. It's more than just an onboard
this would
computer.
be the best point for me to see it if it wasn't
system within the launcher itself. It analyzes the information from the engines, from the propulsion. It has a navigation system,
very much
and it makes the decisions on what is the best outcome
Damn
to
you,
achieve its
Irish
mission.
weather!
So it's a very clever piece of kit, and it's getting ready right now to switch off the engine. The onboard computer will send the command to switch the engine off when the system senses the correct orientation of the launcher. So basically the launcher has to be on track, it has to be going in the right direction, it has to be on time. The computer is programmed to understand that it has to fly from 0 to 19 minutes and 50 seconds. That will be the cut-off time. And it also has to be at the right altitude. Right now we are at 1,117 and climbing, traveling at 8.88 kilometers per second.
Première extinction de l'étage à propergol stockable.
So she's confirmed we have the engine has now switched itself off and we have entered the ballistic phase. Eddie, what does that mean?
The ballistic phase is basically when the launcher is traveling without propulsion. The rocket is traveling already high enough and fast enough to cruise without the engines being on. It's on a celestial autopilot, if you will. This will continue actually for more than 3 hours. What you also see is that the upper stage is going on a gentle rotation. This is what they call the barbecue mode. It's exposing each of the satellites gently for a brief period to the sun, just to keep the payloads and the satellites warm enough while it's in this barbecue mode and while it's in this transition. We saw the liftoff 21 minutes ago, and it'll be great to see a few replays of that and that beautiful launch.
Yes.
Nous sommes en phase balistique et la manœuvre.
I apologize, I will not stick around for that. So, because that was launch of 4 Galileo satellites to up an Ariane 5, 125. Goodbye.